What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Botched and Chair Shots, powered by Last Word on Sports. I am your host, a chef by trade and a mark by choice. I am the Will Gray, and joining me tonight, he is the lead English commentator for New Japan Pro Wrestling. It is Walker Stewart. Walker, how are you, brother? Thanks for coming on chatting about some wrestling with me.
Absolutely. I am doing very well. I'm getting over being a little sick, which is fine. They say that wrestling's for the sickos nowadays. That's what everyone's telling me. So, in the spirit of things, I got a bug, which is awesome. Can't wait to put that one down. I'm especially going to need to put it down in the next 9 days, because 9 days from now, I fly out to Japan for my first ever G1 Climax, which I'm super fired up about. So
I'm excited to get there, but even lead commentators for some of the top wrestling promotions in the world have to answer a few things that everybody has to do. And for one, it's an origin story.
Okay.
I ask everybody, I've asked refs, people who make gear, other commentators, the world champions. Everybody has to have an origin story in the wrestling business. What about yours? We were just chatting about it a little bit. Our paths have been similar in a lot of ways. But how did Walker Stewart end up as the lead commentator for New Japan Pro Wrestling?
Yeah, right. So I got very much into professional wrestling as a fan when I was about 8 years old. I was a really big video game kid growing up. And it just so happened my dad had SmackDown versus Raw 2009 for the PS3. Very much not the best SVR game that I found out since I've become an adult and have a collection behind me and everything like that. But I started off on that. It was awesome. Took me by storm. Loved wrestling ever since. College comes around. I'm 18 years old. Pandemic has just hit. It is, August 2020. So we're right at the beginning of it. My high school had shut down early. My senior year was cut short, March 2020. And it very much left me in a direction of wanting to figure out what I wanted to do. I was going to college at the time for vocal music performance. I was an opera singer throughout the first couple of years of my college career, and then wanted to go into music education and doing things of that sort. Led me into the path of actually dropping the music education side of my degree. I wanted to pick up a journalism degree instead. But before I was able to make the switch into the journalism school, I decided, well, Walker, let's figure out how much you really like writing, right? How much do you really like telling stories as you think? Well, now I find myself in a storytelling position, but at the time I was going through from website to website, talking and writing about pro wrestling, actually. So much so to the point where I happened to stumble upon Last Word on Sports, former LWOS member of the team right here. And I ended up writing my very first wrestling article, which was an article that would have been requested. The team had basically asked, hey, can you write about your local pro wrestling scene? And I'm from Oklahoma. There's not a lot of phenomenal pro wrestling around, not a lot of high drawing pro wrestling. So I went to a show in a VFW in Oklahoma City with 20 people, and I wrote probably what was a bit of an exaggerated, glowing review of that first show that I attended. So much so that the promoter reached out to me personally, said, hey, do you want to be involved at all in the show? And I said, well, I've always wanted to be a wrestling commentator. Hopped in a booth July 24th, 2021, as a third color man. And ever since then, it's just been history. I went on to go and start my own little wrestling video production side gig that I was doing. I was growing as a commentator, ring announcer, director, editor, producer, anything that I could get my hands on in the business. Expanded out to Texas. Texas took me to Arkansas. Arkansas took me to Missouri, Kansas, Las Vegas, Maryland, anywhere I could go. And it just so happened that New Japan Pro Wrestling was looking for a new lead English commentator. And at the time, Kevin Kelly had been holding that role, but planned on moving to All Elite Wrestling, where he pursued that spot on Collision. And they needed a replacement. Kevin Kelly had found me through a good pal of mine, former Ring of Honor wrestler Bob Evans, who's currently one of the best coaches I know on the independent wrestling scene today, based out of the Northeast in Swansea, Massachusetts. So Bob put me over to Kevin. Kevin took a look at my work, was very impressed with everything that I had accomplished in a short 2.5 years, and sent my name to New Japan. And ever since then, we have been where we are today. Got to make my New Japan debut October 2023. And ever since then, I've made my way to my first G1 Climax. So very, very exciting feather in the cap, Will, to say the least.
So I have to know. I'm a Southern guy,
Right.
born and raised right here in Tennessee. I grew up in the late 80s, so the very tail end of the NWA days. You know, Crockett territory. Memphis is right here in my backyard. Oklahoma, Texas, a lot of the same way with some of those territory fills, even into 2024 with Texas, Oklahoma, the rivalry, everything like that goes into it. For you though, personally, when you go from Oklahoma to Japan, what were some of the biggest culture shocks for you?
Oh
Because
man.
going from, you know, the Oklahoma side of it in the States, very different sides of the world, both literally and figuratively. Can you speak on those a little bit? What the culture shocks were like making the jump over to Japan?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's so funny that you mentioned this. To predate this just a little bit by about a week, October 28, 2023, my first ever show with New Japan did not take place in Japan, took place in Las Vegas, Nevada for Fighting Spirit Unleashed 2023. My first time live in person at a New Japan show. I had done a couple of like pre-recorded things for Super Junior Tag League and Post. I didn't really count those. October 28th was my first live in person. And it's so funny because I was in Oklahoma, flew to Vegas, and I had culture shock in Las Vegas, Nevada. That's 4 states away from me or something like that. 3, 4, 5 days later, I'm on a plane to Tokyo, where I had just experienced days prior an incredible culture shock of, oh my God, what's going on? Like I'm not a gambler, but everyone around me is doing it. This is crazy. And then going to Japan, where I'd never left the country. I've been to almost every single corner of the United States, but it didn't even compare. Big culture shock in the way that people treat you. Very respectful culture, very great people in Japan. The fans in Japan are some of my favorite that I've interacted with anywhere in the world. I don't want to typecast an entire country of people, so please don't take it that way. But the ones that I've been able to interact with in Japan, the fans that being, have all been incredibly respectful. Like they don't want to bother you. They don't want to take your time. I haven't interacted with many selfish fans the way you could find in the United States. Just so thankful and gracious and understanding of, you know, if I didn't understand their English for the first time that they said it to me, or if they came at me speaking Japanese and I, you know, had no understanding of being able to kind of navigate that conversation and them leading it forward. It was very kind. Almost made me feel like a child in a weird way, but it was a very kind thing to be able to receive, and I'm hopeful that I've warmed up very quickly in the eyes of the Japanese audience. There's actually a really interesting subsection of Japanese New Japan fans that watch with English commentary, because I've gotten some DMs from those people. So wonderful 0.1% right there. The other culture shock just kind of came in things that are different from the Western world. The Japanese are very different about, you know, visible tattoos and stuff like that. I don't have any tattoos myself, but just seeing how some of my colleagues have been, you know, kind of treated, or like, hey, you have to cover that up, or different things like that. It's a very conservative a way of life, which was really interesting to me. Food situation, big food guy. I think it's obvious by looking at me, I'll be honest. But as big of a food guy as I am, I'm not a seafood guy, which makes Japan a very interesting country for me to go to. But being able to try like real sushi instead of, you know, Japanese sushi instead of gas station sushi in the States, or, you know, I try and push myself out of my comfort zone. I've had squid, I've had different things. I don't like any of it, but I've had it. And I think that's the important part there. So being able to have those things available to me, figuring out different, you know, small places to eat every single city that I go, where I'm not just eating like a burger every day or something like that, or some crazy unhealthy fast food, because that's the last thing I need as someone who travels constantly. So yeah, I think that those are some pretty big points right there in terms of the culture shock. But I'm blessed in every single way. You know, I was born in a, you know, decently sized town in California that I don't remember because my parents moved when I was 2 years old. I remember mostly growing up in a little bit in Kansas and mostly in Oklahoma. And, Oklahoma is a wonderful place to be. I love it. I wouldn't mind living here forever, but there's limitations to it, obviously, as there is to anywhere else in the world. And to be able to go and experience those things and go in with a different mindset to that country and then be able to bring that same mindset back on certain things or certain values back to the States has been very eye-opening to me. And honestly, I think it's something that I kind of needed to have at like the ripe age of 21, 22 years old, be able to have sort of those life experiences and kind of allow those to change and shape the way that I get to live this life. So yeah, overall, very different places if it's not obvious, but very, very good time. I'm happy I get to do it.
The food conversation is something that you and I could have, and it's taking everything in my heart not to divert this, because Ben would be like, "Will, we're not a food website."
Of course,
Like,
we can talk on there. It's fine. We'll make it happen.
So let's kind of dive into some of the wrestling as we got going on right now. I'm going to try to not throw you the same questions you're going to have, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of duplicates. You're doing this amazing media coverage right now, and I'm always going to give you your roses, appreciate your time. But let's kind of start at the top with it. In the G1 this year, there's no Ishii, there's no Ospreay, there's no Tana. He missed the qualifying in Block A. We'll get to Okada in a second. It seems like there's been a lot of these big names that have historically been there for New Japan to lean on in a lot of ways. They're gone. Do you see this G1 as kind of being that chance for them to have that passing of the torch moment, because there's a chance for so many young guys and young lions to step up, as it were? Is this the year for the passing of the torch in some ways in the G1? And if so, who are some of the young guys you've got your eyes on?
Yeah, I see this as, from a financial, from a corporate, from a in-ring perspective, this needs to be the year. Overall, bar none. There is a very clear difference in the lineup that we have 20 men across A block and B block respectively, and the last 10 to 15 years of G1 Climax winners, right? There's no Kenny Omega. There is no Tanahashi. There is no Kota Ibushi. There is no Okada, as you mentioned. The only winner in the last 10 years, there have been 5 people to win the G1 in the last 10 years of its existence. That's nearly half my damn life. And only one of them is still around, and that being the current IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, Tetsuya Naito. And nobody will be gunned for harder in this tournament in Block A than Naito will be as the reigning champion. And that always puts a lot more difficult of a process around the champion going in and winning G1 Climax every single year. All that being said, yes, it needs to be the year for the new guys. But I think there are some guys on the roster that feel a little bit overlooked that also have not been able to achieve that G1 victory and then follow it up with an IWGP heavyweight or world heavyweight title reign. And I'm talking about Hiroki Goto when I mentioned that in this context. Goto going on to win in the final, or make it to the finals rather, of New Japan Cup this year, has not won a G1 Climax since his debut G1 and never followed up with the big one. We talk all the time about always the bridesmaid, never the bride for Hiroki Goto. And a lot of guys in this tournament are kind of saying to themselves right now, I can't let the world look at me like Goto. And Goto knows that himself. Jeff Cobb has been saying that recently. I can't keep entering G1 after G1 and not walk away with the win, and it has to be this year. A lot of people saying it about Zack Sabre Jr. as well. And surely as a guy like Shingo Takagi gets up there in age, starting to feel that way a little bit himself too. So there are some of these older guys like the Takagi, like Cobb, who continues to progress forward in his career. And by no means are these people done with their careers anytime coming soon, Will. That's not what I'm saying. But by comparison of a 41, 45-year-old veteran of the sport to, a young gun, 27 years old, like Shota Umino, who started this year off with a loss at Wrestle Kingdom, beat Narita in February in Korakuen, grabbed the microphone and called himself the new ace of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and has gone on to do admittedly nothing since then. This is one of those crowning moments where, in testament to like, hey, if you're going to do anything at all, it's got to be right now, because if it's not this year, no one's going to take you seriously going forward. And Shota knows that as well. So all that being said, spotlight placed on the young guys, absolutely. I think it's very key to note that Boltin Oleg knocking out not only Hiroshi Tanahashi, not only Toru Yano, but also Taichi in the finals, who a lot of people really considered before block announcements to be a shoe-in in this year's tournament, just like many considered Tanahashi and Toru Yano to be as well. There was potential for Tanahashi to go on to his, maybe one of his final main events in the Tokyo Dome for the IWGP World title and win it for the first time in his career as the world iteration of the championship, and put his stamp, his mark as president on that title itself. Toru Yano could have played spoiler, as we've seen him do many, many times over the past 20 years of in-ring competition for Yano. And Taichi, it could have been very well the big one, the first one for him. And Boltin Oleg was the one to spoil all of that. And I'm not going to be throwing out predictions right here, right now, but if there's anyone that could play spoiler, has a hell of a chance of making it to the quarter, the semis, or even the finals, and I think a lot of people will underrate him until he gets there, it is Boltin Oleg. And it very well could also be Callum Newman, who now holds the record alongside our good pal La Sombra, Andrade in the WWE organization, for the youngest G1 Climax entrant of all time. Both men coming in at 21 years of age, and Callum Newman the more recent to do so. Both of those men being the ones to win the A block and B block qualifiers, I really consider to be New Japan Pro Wrestling's mark of approval, their stamp. Hey, you guys want to talk about the future so much, we're going to put these two young guys in this tournament. They are going to be the ones to prove exactly what the future of New Japan Pro Wrestling is, if they have what it takes. And by God, they had what it took. So it looks like this year is definitely going to be one of change. That's the one thing I can say for certain.
I had Callum on my list, and I love it when the guest knows and we can just kind of hit it, because I'm like, okay, we talked about that. He hit that for me.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that you didn't get to, and this is almost a really similar question to the passing of the torch in the G1 kind of aspect as well. Kazuchika Okada. He's come across the Pacific. He's in AEW now. New Japan Pro Wrestling has had a reliance on him as being the catch niche word in the wrestling world right now is a pillar. You know what I mean? Somebody that can hold the walls up for the wrestling promotion. Now that Okada is gone, in your eyes, who are some of the guys that can step in and hold that spot up? And it's not necessarily going to be a young lion. It could be a Naito. It could be some of these other guys. But in your eyes, who's that next star that's ready to step up and be the next Okada?
I don't believe there will ever be another Kazuchika Okada as long as we live. Kazuchika Okada is one of a kind, and there's a reason he had the success which he did in New Japan Pro Wrestling. There's a reason that he had the company backing which he did in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and capture the hearts of a lot of fans. And whether he still retains those hearts in All Elite Wrestling or not is none of our business to talk about today. But I'd love to get to this point because it's so intriguing to me. Everyone talks about who's the next Okada. I think that the focus really needs to be not who's the next Okada, but who is the first Shota Umino, and who is the first Yota Tsuji, and who is the first Ren Narita. But specifically on that Umino point, such an interesting thing to circle all the way around to, where we've talked over the past calendar year or two, Shota Umino embodying a lot of elements of Hiroshi Tanahashi in his in-ring style, or a flamboyance of a Tetsuya Naito, or a holier-than-thou aspect to his perception as Kazuchika Okada might have had toward a young lion or a young boy during his later stages in his New Japan career. Again, I keep harping on Umino because I think he's going to be one to watch, especially in this tournament. It has been loss for Umino all the way down the board for the most part so far for the year of 2024. And something has to change very, very soon if Umino wants to be able to claim that ace status, should he be able to do so. Another name that I think a lot of people need to keep on their platform is David Finlay. And I think that's going to be a controversial pick for a lot of people, but the IWGP Global Heavyweight Champion has never had a stronger Bullet Club War Dogs than we have right now, with champions all across the board, the junior heavyweight tag titles, and of course, the global heavyweight title for David Finlay. Can't allow that global title to become a distraction the way that we've seen titles become in G1's previous, but his third entrance into G1, they always say that third time's the charm, right? And I think David Finlay, as a future thinking man, as someone who wants to keep Bullet Club on top for New Japan Pro Wrestling, knows just how important a victory in this tournament is, being especially one of only 2 War Dogs representatives, Gabe Kidd on the opposite side in Block A, who once again, another future name that you are going to want to look at. Beyond that, though, I'm looking at the list right now. There's Umino, there's Callum Newman, there's Bolton Oleg, there's Tsuji, Uemura especially. An Uemura situation will be very interesting. Will Uemura be able to go outside the confines of what he considers to be his true professional wrestling style, that catch can style, that pure rule style, however you want to define it? Uemura has been very stubborn so far since his return from excursion, does not want to go outside of that deadbolt suplex and a lot of those amateur style takedowns that we've seen. And if there's one thing to know about New Japan Pro Wrestling, folks, it is that adaptation is your only key to survival. And you are definitely going to need that if you're going to be in a tournament of this caliber, of this prestige, especially for many years to come. So that was a long answer for you, Will, but reality is there's so much to talk about with these young guys, because every single person outside of Tetsuya Naito in this tournament and Goto as well, has never won a G1 Climax in their career.
It seems like an open field in a lot of ways, and it makes it exciting, especially from a fan's perspective, because this is one of the first times in a long time where we're sitting here going, we have no idea what's going to happen over the next, one of the things New Japan has always been heralded for is the coined term Forbidden Door. I'm not a big fan of that. But one thing New Japan's always done well is they've always incorporated worldwide stars, going all the back to the IWGP League with Hogan and Andre coming over, all the way up till now. You've got AEW and DDT representation and some of the other Japanese representation there as well. You've got Takeshita and some of the other names. What's it like for the G1 now, even in 2024, to kind of go back to the roots of it and have guys from multiple promotions vying for this prestigious cup and this prestigious title right here in the heart of the summer?
Yeah, to be quite honest with you, I wish we had a little bit more of it even. I love Konosuke Takeshita as much as anyone else. I love Jake Lee from Pro Wrestling Noah. I think Jake Lee has shown a lot over the past few months and is going to be forced to show even more now with the dissolution of the good-looking guys in Noah and saying, well, I'm going to be fighting for myself. Admittedly, I always thought Jake Lee was fighting for himself, but that's a different conversation for a different day. One of my favorite things about Best of the Super Junior this year was the inclusion of, based off of an injury, but a shock Dragon Gate debut of Dragon Dia, a man who, if you follow Best of the Super Junior, did not pick up a single tournament victory until the very end. But by God, no one forgot the name of Dragon Dia throughout the tournament because of the heart that he showed and in those performances. In a way, didn't win, didn't even make it to the semifinals nor the finals at the main event of Dominion, but walked away with so much more. And that's a platform, that is a spotlight. When people see Dragon Dia's face and name again, they're going to remember him. And I think that one of the most interesting parts of the G1 Climax is the ability to make a new star, which it sounds like this year is going to be made one way or another, the hands of New Japan Pro Wrestling or at the hands of whoever it is that makes their way to the finals and walks away with the win, right? I love seeing the introduction of Takeshita into the lineup, especially. Takeshita has been very vocal about his placement on wrestling cards in All Elite Wrestling, talking to Tokyo Sports and talking to a couple of other media outlets about his time during DDT and comparing that to the likes of AEW And, I think that this is going to be a bit of a proving ground for Takeshita, not only in his home base of Japan, but by God, if Takeshita walks in, makes it to the finals of his first G1 Climax, and wins the damn cup, he will have to take that back to AEW, put it on Tony Khan's desk in Jacksonville, and ask him how he's not capable of putting him in main events going forward. And with that being said, more than just the shot at the IWGP World title on the line at Wrestle Kingdom 19 in the main event, more than just the tournament on the line, but future status in other companies such as AEW, DDT, and anywhere else for Takeshita. I think that really makes him the more dangerous out of the two outsiders, but I'm very much okay with anyone disagreeing with me on that, because I know Jake Lee's a hell of a fighter as well.
Great answers. There's never a wrong answer, but like when you get it, you get it. I'm sitting here writing down timestamps, and every 10 seconds, I'm like, okay, that's another great quote. Like, love it. One of the things I was just gloating about the history of New Japan, great relationships with CMLL. This year, adding AEW and Stardom into the mix, they announced Wrestle Dynasty. So not only are you going to have Wrestle Kingdom in the Tokyo Dome, the biggest event in Japan, you're immediately going to follow it up with Wrestle Dynasty. How exciting is that for you and you guys from your chair to not just New Japan, not just Stardom, now adding CMLL and AEW, and to produce a super show with up to 4 promotions going at once?
Yeah, and you can even add a 5th on top of that, Ring of Honor also being included in that mix as well. And as someone who, admittedly, I really wish I could have shared a booth at Forbidden Door, especially for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship match. And they brought one Oklahoman in Jim Ross, so they got something right. But but I digress. All things being said, though, Wrestle Dynasty, when I got the call about, hey, Walker, we want you to do the voiceover. This is going to play on Forbidden Door. This is what Wrestle Dynasty is. I was absolutely stoked about it. I know that there have been conversations about, will there be Forbidden Door at the Tokyo Dome one day? And Tony Khan has very graciously kind of pushed those to the side and go, well, when the time is right, the time is right. You said yourself, not a big fan of the Forbidden Door terminology. That's completely okay. But that door being open on Japan is such an important thing for the growth of all elite wrestling, for the growth of Consejo Mundial de Lucha Libre, and even, the status of New Japan and pro wrestling and Stardom to show that they are world powers in their own right. And of course, Ring of Honor making its first return to Japan since 2019, I believe, with Honor Wars or something along the line, that tour that took place at that point. Or Rising Honor or anything of that sort, trying to remember. Anyway, point is, all of these things being together and also taking place in a legendary building, the likes of the Tokyo Dome, the Saturday-Sunday combination, I think is going to be a phenomenal back-to-back. And one of the things I'm most interested in for Wrestle Dynasty and Wrestle Kingdom 19 is, will anything from Wrestle Kingdom 19 influence a card decision or a change or any sort of stipulation that we see take place the following night at Wrestle Dynasty? Because, Wrestle Kingdom, it's what everyone prepares for throughout the year. If you're the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Tetsuya Naito, you're defending against, I'll throw Jeff Cobb into the mix. It's that match. It's the main event, biggest stage in Japanese wrestling. And then who knows, you're scheduled for a title fight where the winner of that faces off against an AEW wrestler at the following night. And you have to not only prepare for that match, but your first match as well. And it's a lot of pressure on the athletes. It's a lot of pressure on the champions, especially, not just in New Japan, but in every other brand overall. But all these things being said, I love seeing events like this announced, in all honesty. Forbidden Door, Wrestle Dynasty, anything else that takes place, even Fantastica Mania with CMLL and Rev Pro in New Japan, and then also in CMLL down in Mexico with New Japan guys coming in down there as well. I think that it's really healthy to have competition of this style. I really, really love seeing guys going out there, killing it, and killing each other for the opportunity to know, hey, if I win up this match, if I win this title, if I rise up the rankings, I can not only represent at Wrestle Kingdom, but I can also represent when the card selection is going to get a little smaller for each company and be the NJPW representation for Wrestle Dynasty, the CMLL representation for Wrestle Dynasty. I think that's a really special thing. And it's something that gives guys something to fight for the next half a year up until January comes around for 2025.
When I say I dislike the forbidden door term, I love the idea of open work relationships between promotions. I just wish it wasn't. It didn't seem like such a like a an alien concept. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I mean by that. Just to
I
clarify a
understand.
little bit. Yeah. Um, let's move on to one of the biggest stars in the world now. And when you think New Japan Pro Wrestling and Stardom and the IWGP, you think Bushiroad.
Right.
The people who run it all. Mercedes Mone just recently came in because Bushi has the three different pieces. She's been an IWGP champion. She currently holds the New Japan Strong title and the TBS title. When you look at somebody like that, of that star caliber, and not just one company, but essentially two companies and the broader scope of the IWGP, how important is Mercedes Mone to New Japan Pro Wrestling and New Japan Strong right now as the New Japan Strong champion?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. I appreciate you bringing that up. I think that the most important thing that you can have in professional wrestling is a draw. Simple as that. Someone who is capable of selling tickets, putting butts in seats, and making sure people stick around for the entirety of an event. And all things being considered, this is no disrespect to Gabe Kidd as strong openweight champion, no disrespect to TMDK as strong openweight tag team champions, but Mercedes Mone is Mone for a reason, and that money very well could come in the pockets of Bushiroad, of TVSI, of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and New Japan Pro Wrestling of America overall, more so with Mone as New Japan Strong Women's Champion. I have the utmost respect for Mone, what she's been able to do ever since, even during her time in WWE, leaving WWE, betting on herself, making that name for herself, overcoming injury that she suffered in that initial tournament to crown a strong women's champion, and then bring it all the way back around following that IWGP women's title reign, earning that title, the TBS title, of course, over Willow Nightingale, and then bringing it all together with that victory over Stephanie Vaquer. I absolutely see Mercedes Mone as a phenomenal asset to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I'm very hopeful that we get to see a little bit more Mone around New Japan Pro Wrestling proper.
One of the things that the IWGP did recently that changed a lot of the status quo, as it were, was they introduced the IWGP Women's World Title. Having Stardom in the past, but specifically dedicating an entire women's division with the IWGP. What was that like, with the history and the heritage that comes with the company, and for them to decide, okay, it's time to put a stamp on it and give a dedicated division in the IWGP to women?
Yeah.
How do you think about that? And how do you feel about that?
I definitely think that there is been a missed mark in certain ways. And I mean this with all due respect to the powers that be in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm very grateful for what I have and what I get to do there. But sometimes there are things that happen in this world that feel that they happen just to happen, that there is no true thought and passion and feeling put behind it. And there are times where you can look at the IWGP Women's Championship and feel that in certain ways from a New Japan Pro Wrestling perspective. And what I mean by that is, yes, the IWGP Women's Championship is showcased in a variety of ways in Stardom, and I think that's absolutely phenomenal. And yes, the International Wrestling Grand Prix and the IWGP board does expand beyond New Japan Pro Wrestling and into the Stardom region with the acquirement by New Japan Pro Wrestling, Stardom now being a subsidiary. Reality is, though, it would be wonderful to see the IWGP Women's Champion Mayu Iwatani on New Japan Pro Wrestling tours. We have not seen the IWGP Women's title defended or even the champion at all since February of this year. It was the New Beginning series in Sapporo. And I mean, it was a great match that those two women had to defend that title for Iwatani. But we had not seen any buildup on any part of the tour prior to that. while we would hope that there is intersection between New Japan Pro Wrestling and Stardom fans, and for a lot of cases there are also some of these smaller towns that we hit that absolutely do not have that crossover appeal whatsoever. I think that the actual act of having a women's division with the IWGP branding is incredible. I think it's necessary. I think that it is something that should be encouraged further by New Japan Pro Wrestling, by matchmakers that be. But I also think that it is something that should not just exist for the sake of it existing, but rather should be something that is done with intention, done with purpose, done with good in the heart to be able to really display, I guess what I'm trying to say, the prominent and incredible female talent that exists in the country of Japan on the larger stage that is New Japan Pro Wrestling proper. But all that being said, I do love the IWGP Women's Championship concept and the fact that it exists. I have so much respect for Mayu Iwatani as a champion, Kairi Sane, Mercedes Moné, all these people who have held this title. I just would like to see it in contention more often.
I was putting my list together for things I wanted to talk to you about, and I was going through each division. And when I was doing some research, I saw that there was a junior heavyweight title change going straight into the G1 season. I was trying to figure out the question I wanted to ask you specifically about the title change, but really, you brought up the rich heritage with CMLL and the Lucha Libre impact that it's always had with the junior heavyweight division. So I'm asking you right now, maybe as a fan and as somebody who sits there as the lead commentator, does New Japan Pro Wrestling have the best junior heavyweight division right now in wrestling? Coming out of the best of the Super Juniors, looking at the way the super heavyweight title is in major contention right now, there's a lot of people vying for it. Do you feel like New Japan has the best junior heavyweight division in pro wrestling?
I'm trying to concise things a little bit in my mind with, CMLL. They have, the middleweight, welterweight, light heavyweight. They have a lot more specificity in the Mexico Athletic Commission's board and jurisdiction as to what applies where. But realistically, I think that there is no better junior heavyweight action than what you find in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And if you want true proof of that, Best of the Super Junior 31 just wrapped up last month in June, culminated June 9th at Dominion, started back in May, and just a litany of matches that prove exactly why New Japan's Pro Wrestling's junior heavyweight division is what it is. And you're right, we did just crown a new IWGP junior heavyweight champion in Doki back on night 7 in the Tokyo Budokan during the New Japan Soul Series. I consider that an absolute shock victory, not because I don't believe in Doki, a hell of a talent Doki is, but El Desperado just went through this entire war of the best of the Super Junior tournament, eked out that finals victory in the main event of Dominion for the first time in history, defeated Sho in a crazy steel cage match back in Sapporo on night 1 of the Soul Series, and then ends up with what is now the second shortest reign in junior heavyweight championship history in New Japan Pro Wrestling, just a little bit ahead of old Juventud Guerrera. So, it's a very interesting dichotomy of what we have here. The chase, the claim, and then that first defense hurdle, which we often talk about being the hardest one in any championship reign whatsoever, to establish that confidence, to establish that dominance. And Desperado failed just as he had against Sho back in Sapporo in February to lead to that entire title reign, which we saw. So I am very intrigued to see as we head into the season of heavyweight action in G1 Climax and we kind of close out the junior heavyweight side of things, what Doki's championship reign looks like. And I'm very hopeful that we do get to witness Doki in action on this G1 tour, even in just preview tag team action before we head into G1 Climax participation.
For the tag team division, TMDK, Fightful reported earlier, they just re-signed contracts. We could rave about the great things about the tag team division, but right now, one of the all-time greats from New Japan, the Gorillas of Destiny, are currently featured and showcased in one of the biggest wrestling stories of the last 20 years, 30 years. Some people are saying forever, mind you. How do you feel about watching Tama and Tangaloa, having seen their career in New Japan, having had a chance to call some of their matches? How do you think about how they're being showcased right now in the Bloodline, making the jump over to Connecticut?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. First off, hats off to Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa for, making careers in Japan and then jumping to what is a very different situation, a very different environment. The structure is completely different. What might be a lack thereof in New Japan is much more tightly written and rode in an organization like World Wrestling Entertainment. And I think that there's a lot to be commended by Tama Tonga or for Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa for being able to make that jump and do so as smoothly as they have and really become fixture points in this bloodline saga that we have seen. I mean, Paul Heyman said it so long ago, we're just only in the first chapter or we're only in the first inning or whatever it was he said to really illustrate the point that this is, you want long-term stories, folks. All right, well, here they are. I only got to know Tama Tonga very, very shortly. He left about 4 months into my run in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I actually had a wonderful conversation with him on his last match out when he lost the Never Openweight Championship to Evil, back on that night, where we had a conversation in the hotel where it was a very genuine one. It was a very kind one. It was one where it made me go, man, I wish I would have had more time with you and that you could have stuck around a little bit longer to be able to just strengthen that bond. He was a good person on so many accounts, is a good person by so many accounts, and I'm very happy to see the success that he has. Same exact thing goes for goes for Tonga Loa. His exit from New Japan Pro Wrestling was a little bit more shocking to me. I expected there to be more to be done in sort of a singles variety for Tonga Loa, but I'm very happy that those two, you grow up together, wanting to be wrestlers, your childhood dream often to make it to the largest wrestling company in the country that you're born in, and do so together as a family. And nothing embodies that family element more than the bloodline situation in WWE. So, super proud of Tama and Tonga Loa. Hoping the best for them, and it's interesting to see where things continue to go.
So we've talked about New Japan, all this great things going on, Wrestle Kingdom, Wrestle Dynasty. I want a question for you, Walker. A question for Walker Stewart. You're making towns internationally, man. You had a great indie career and run when you were doing commentary there. What's the work-life balance like for you these days?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Is there a balance is the real question. Very, very interesting one to ask there. Work-life balance. I've been going through a lot of changes in my personal life I'm not going to get into, but it's kind of led more so into me dumping more of who I am into my work, which can come with some incredible benefits and kind of some drawbacks from a mental standpoint. But I think I have a really healthy balance where I am right now. Especially New Japan have been very easy to work with on scheduling. I've never turned down a date or a tour concept that New Japan have put forward to me. I want to be in Japan as often, as much as possible, getting to do this live, my dream, live that out for as long as they'll physically allow me to do so. But yeah, I think that when I'm on the road, very easy to make time fly by. I mean, I have my moments, of course. I miss my family. I miss my friends. I miss those that I connected with on the independent scene. But the roster, I hang out with a lot of the international talent quite often. A very welcoming group for the most part. David Finley is a little iffy, but I'm trying to work on him, soften him up a little bit. Gabe Kidd's a madman. I don't want anything to do with the bar scene when he's around. But reality is, New Japan roster is filled with a lot of very helpful, very good people that have very much kind of walked me along in the early goings and were like, hey, kid, here's this, this, and this. Here's how you can figure this out. Really just stringing me in that way. And I'm very grateful for that early introduction that I had, because it has made the transition to doing things on my own now much smoother, which has been very helpful in every single way. So work-life balance is good. If I when I'm in the States, I don't really have anything I'm required to do unless there's a post-production call that I need to make. So I get to pour more of myself into things that I love. I enjoy when I get the time to do some Twitch streaming, some light video game, wrestling watch along, anything like that. The Velvet Voice WS thing is my social media on every single handle, Twitch included. So, drop the Prime sub over there, brother. But, absolutely fantastic time when I get to be home, be with my family. I love that. I love it to death. And I love being able to be on the road as well. So there is literally no negative either way other than missing a couple of people once in a while. So very much enjoy what I get to do.
All right, Walker, before we land the plane and we go home, everybody has to answer 5 random questions.
5 random questions. I'm ready.
I've got yours queued up. None of yours have to do with wrestling at all. So you got 5 lucky ones. All right. So question number 1. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Oh my gosh. Is it cheating if I say the Iron Claw?
Is that absolutely not.
I love wrestling so much that I want to put the Iron Claw there, but it feels passe. I'm gonna go with Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Ferris Bueller's Day Off? That a good one?
Yes.
That's a good pick.
That's a fantastic pick.
Yeah.
I think the Iron Claw. I'm a sleeper like Homer for A24. The production company
movies. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Question number 2. What was your favorite TV show growing up as a kid?
Oh, I was, if we're talking cartoons, I was a SpongeBob kid. But Hey Arnold as well. My brother got me hooked on Hey Arnold when it kind of came out on Netflix, which sounds like a weird sentence to say if you were like, grew up in the 90s. What's so interesting about that though is like I didn't grow up on TV. I grew up on YouTube. That's so weird to think about for me, but like I grew up on like video game YouTube content creators and like Minecraft and wrestling stuff and different whatever. So like my parents were not monitoring what I was watching, but it turned me into who I am today for better and for worse. So, but yeah, if we're talking actual TV shows, Family Matters, dude. Oh my God. The George Lopez show. It's all coming back to me now. That question just unlocked something. We can just keep going on that.
You thought these would be the easy questions. They're not. We're going to talk
like
we're going to peel onion layers back. You're going to need to call a therapist by the end of it.
Oh, it feels like therapy right now. Wow, I love it.
Question number 3. Tribalism just huge in wrestling right now. Everybody has to pick a side. So I'm going to make you pick a side. Oh, does pineapple belong on pizza?
Oh God, no, not at all. not a soul on earth should be putting anything relative to pineapple on a pizza. And I'll even take this a step further, and this is controversial. I'm going to go no fruit on pizza whatsoever, and people will look at me and go, Walker, a tomato's a fruit, tomato sauce. I'm an Alfredo guy. So I'm putting Alfredo on pizza. I'm putting pepperoni on top of it. That's a dream pizza. Stuff it with some cheese in the crust, and you have yourself a magnificent dish. So no pineapple on pizza.
Sold. Done. Yeah. That's it. Close it. Run the outro. Question number 4. Would you never, if you had the choice between one of the two of never being hungry again or never being thirsty again?
Oh man, I'd be drinking, man. Not like that, but I'd be drinking liquids.
Oh, I keep water all the times. Like I'm real bad about sodas, but like always have a beverage of some kind. I get that.
I would be a much better person if I had water all the time. I have an unopened Diet Mountain Dew because I didn't want to drink on stream, but it's there. It's there. If I start coughing,
I'm an unofficial Dr. Pepper sponsor because I drink one like every time I'm on a stream with it.
When I was doing Twitch streaming, I had a Diet Mountain Dew, and I swear to God, if I could find them in Japan, I'd have a Diet Mountain Dew at the booth with me every single time too. In Japan, I'm a Welch's grape juice sponsor. That's what I am. But gosh, wait, what was the question? Oh,
if you
I would rather never be thirsty again because I assume that means my throat's always lubricated, so I will never cough the way that I am right now. That's my answer.
All right. Well, one more, then we'll get ready to wrap it up for you. And this was a tough one too.
Okay.
You have to give up. You have to make the choice. One or the other. Tacos or cheeseburgers?
Oh, that's mad easy for me. Tacos. I can give it up. Yeah, I don't need it.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah, we'll put it aside. Put it on the tray. Double it, give it to the next person. I'm such a burger guy. I'm the most American dieted human being ever in all the worst ways. Like it makes Japan such a difficult thing sometimes. I'm like burgers, pizza, fries. Like, oh my God. Yeah, that's it to me. So yeah, no, you thought you got me with that one, huh? Yeah.
That
That was a
okay,
burger.
I'll admit it. I can
Uh,
admit it. I'll eat crow. I thought that one would be a little bit tougher, but you shut it down. I'm here for it. Absolutely.
which one did I struggle the most with? That was probably the movie one, right? What did I struggle the most with there?
I would say movie and TV show. Those were the first two that kind of opened it up for you. You were like, wait a
God.
second.
And
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
so funny. Oh, I'm like an onion. I'm peeling back the layers.
See? You have
Yeah.
no idea. You thought the first half was going to be the tough part. The 5 random are always the hardest part,
God,
man.
it always is. I'll be prepared next time.
All right, this is the part everybody loves because I shut the hell up. Plug anything you want to plug. Tell us about your shows, anything that you have coming up that you want to put over as far as social media stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about it. NJPWworld.com. You're going to want a subscription. You're going to want to sign up for the highest tier, every tier, all at once. You're going to want it. G1 Climax 34 is the most prestigious tournament in professional wrestling for the year of 2024. And there is no tournament in the world that will be able to outclass the action that you see coming up, which will start July 20th live in Osaka. For the opening night, we are going to have 2 monumental matches there. Yota Tsuji and Konosuke Takeshita from AEW in Block B. Block A, Los Ingobernables de Japón versus Los Ingobernables de Japón. Tetsuya Naito, the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, versus my personal favorite wrestler in New Japan Pro Wrestling overall, the Rampage Dragon, Shingo Takagi. 2 monumental matches to kick off night 1, and then night 2 is followed up with 2 heavy nights as well, or 2 heavy matches in Osaka. Hiroki Goto, Yuya Uemura, Zack Sabre Jr., Tetsuya Naito, and we follow up all the way to the 19th night, the finals event taking place in Ryogoku. Every single event, I want you to zoom in, listen real close, every single event, live English coverage, NJPWworld.com. I will be there. You'll get to hear the velvety voice that is Walker Stewart. You will get to hear and talk to all of your favorite New Japan Pro Wrestling roster members. We're going to have Jeff Cobb in the booth. Occasionally, we will have a variety of athletes come through on the English broadcast side of things. Of course, my good pal Chris Charlton when we were in the Tokyo area, and then ready for the semifinals and the finals. So once again, NJPWworld.com. And if you want to follow G1 Climax from afar, I mean, I think you're a little crazy, but I respect the effort. You can follow me on Twitter at Velvet Voice WS. I'm going to be covering all of it all across every social media sphere that I have my hands on. Of course, at NJPW Global on all social media as well for your English New Japan Pro Wrestling content. And that's all I got for you, Will.
Excellent, Walker, man. I really appreciate your time tonight and stopping by and chatting about some wrestling with me.
Awesome. Yeah, man. I talked to you a little bit about it earlier on, but there's an interesting butterfly effect that my participation in Last Word on Sports, even as brief as it was, a little bit less than a year, I think, that I got to be in the group chat and on the board and writing, for about my local scene and all that stuff. It has been a bit of a game changer in my life in a way that I had that very brief interaction with all the teams. So yeah, definitely couldn't pass this up. Very much appreciate you having me on the show.
Excellent. I appreciate it very much. I'm going to do my quick plugs. Make sure if you're on Apple or Spotify listening to us, remember to like and follow and leave a 5-star review for Botched Spots and Share Shots. And always check out Last Word on Sports for all of your sports and wrestling, day-to-day news and interviews and knowledge. For the Velvet Voice, Walker Stewart, I am the Will Gray. Thanks for stopping by and listening, my people.